This is my personal opinion. It's the best match that Goldberg ever had.
All right, let's keep going. Super chats. We have John Falsetta, and he says, Arn, I've been a fan your whole career, so no disrespect with the question, but were you the agent nobody names for the infamous Goldberg-William Regal match?
It's
Do you remember
possible.
this?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you recall this match at all? I pulled it up over here. I was going to read a little background for you if you want me to.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was me. I had that match.
Oh, you did?
Yes, and I delivered instructions that I was given. You know, for Regal to have taken all the grief that he's taken over the years about that match, this is my personal opinion. It's the best match that Goldberg ever had because it was one of the first contests that he was ever in where it was a 50-50 fight. And, when you've been given 8 minutes or 9 minutes or whatever it was, you can't just go out and slaughter a guy like William Regal for 9 minutes. You have to have a competitive match.
Let me read this excerpt from you. I'm reading it from WrestlingInc.com. The cause of the bad blood, and this is Regal and Goldberg, is the result of a singles match between the two on February 8th, 1998, 7 months into Goldberg's monstrous run in the company. The match, which saw Regal push Goldberg to his longest televised match to date at the time, led to Regal's subsequent firing from the company. Regal utilized his stiff style against the former defensive tackle, something that his lordship says was planned by the match's agent and not an attempt to make Goldberg look bad. I did as I was told by the person in charge of that match, Regal explained on an episode of his Gentleman Villain podcast. I was thrown under the bus by the producer in charge of it. So William Regal ultimately believes a lack of communication is what soiled the relationship with Goldberg and his tenure in WCW. I was so frustrated that night. Regal continued to explain on his podcast there was a lack of communication in WCW. Eric came out screaming. I took it on the chin. And so there we go.
Well, yeah, I didn't jump up and stick my chest out and go throw my boss under the bus, which would have been Eric.
Right.
When we discussed this beforehand, I said, Eric, we got 8-9 minutes here. You certainly don't want this to be just a squash job. You can't squash a guy for 8-9 minutes. And why would you a top hand like Regal? He said, no, go. I mean, they need to have a match. Well, then when it didn't come to fruition for everybody's happiness, I guess, when they actually went out and had a match and had a fight, and I'm sure it was the first time Bill had been having to work and having to think about what he was doing because basically he just steamrolled everybody up until that point. And I personally thought he was having to work and dig. And I think wrestling fans, I don't know, they can tell me, do you like for a guy to have to work for what he gets, especially the company babyface, the face of the company? Do you want him to just go out and steamroll all your heels, or do you want a contest? And that's what they got. And I'm sorry that Regal got his ass chewed out. I wasn't aware that he got fired over it. But yes, I pass this information, guys. Have a hell of a match.
Right.
Have a competitive match.
If anything, right. And that's what we see nowadays. You don't see someone steamrolling, right?
No, I mean, I think it did Regal good. I think it served him well.
Well, so there you go. Great question.
There it is.
Yeah, there you go. The whole story right here with Arn. So Drew Landry, the professor's up next. He said, what did you think of Goldberg in WCW? Now, Goldberg's made some headlines recently because he's a free agent. He's moved off his WWE contract, no longer under contract, and there's been speculation where could he pop up next and so forth. But I got to ask, what did you think of him during his WCW tenure?
Well, I enjoyed watching the whole phenomenon. was there for every step of it from day one till the last day. And he was built like a superhero. And the entire company got on board, and he went out and he beat somebody every single television in 4 or 5 minutes, and he got red hot. And I would suggest when business was hot, you needed somebody to, at least in theory, slow down the NWO or put a stop to some of their shenanigans. And he was the best chance WCW had. The story was great. He was, and he looked like a beast. You know, his offense was like a beast. He was a superhero, and he was the hope for WCW for those fans that were left. You know, funny. I just saw him, and I hadn't seen Bill in years and years and years and years. But I was with him, you know, and I was helping him, and I was advising him, and I was his agent / producer for a lot of those matches. And he came up to Brock and I, and you know, he came up and he hugged my neck and just said, "I just want you to know, you know, I couldn't have done it without you."
Now, how long ago was this, Arn?
WrestleCon.
Oh, okay. So
LA.
this year. Nice.
Yeah. And I wasn't expecting that. And he was just kind of appeared. He was right there, and he just makes you feel good.
I'm sure it does. That's cool.
You know, and I could tell he was being sincere.
That's good. I'm glad you shared that with us. Never know the impact that you make on people, and you live in and you work in an industry where it's running and gunning. You don't see each other. It's here or there, moving so quick that it's just. I'm sure those moments in times mean so much.
Well, when you sort through the ones that are real and are just because you're sharing the same space and you have to, you know, at least be cordial, and then there's the ones that are real, and makes you feel good. Really
That's
does.
good, man. Thank you
Because
for sharing
it's tough business.
It is.
It can be a very tough business, and it's nice to see that some things outlast just the negatives. You know, don't focus on the negatives and focus on the positives, and that kind of made my weekend.
It's great. Thank you for sharing that.